Hey, what's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Lovely Clarice from the Chip 'n Dale series. And Lovely Clarice is one of the new Tsum that got released this month in September. And Lovely Clarice is one of the easier Tsums to get. It's not the easiest one, but my drop rates for Lovely Clarice is at 50% compared to Lovely Tinkerbell, which is at 37.5, and for Lovely Stitch and Angel, it's at 12.5. So Lovely Clarice isn't too bad, but if you don't have all the other Tsums maxed out, it may be a little bit more difficult. So let's take a look at Lovely Clarice's ability description. So for Lovely Clarice, she is going to clear a vertical line of Tsums and spawns either a big Chip or big Dale. So it's going to be one of those two big Tsums. And the game demonstration that you're currently watching right now is a skill level 1 game demonstration, but I will have the other skill levels as well in this video. But before I go any further, if you guys are enjoying this type of content where I review Tsums, do monthly leaks, review the premium, and also the selection boxes, then please consider subscribing to this channel. Your subscription really helps me out a lot. And if you are interested in chatting with other fellow Tsum Tsum players, please consider joining my line group where like-minded individuals will chat about this game. Also, I will be able to share hearts with you as well if you need some hearts. And if you want to chat a little bit more about other video games, I also have a Discord server, so if you're interested in chatting about other games, feel free to join me on the Discord server as well. Okay, so back to Lovely Clarice. Let's take a look at her stats. In order for you to activate her ability, you will need to clear a total of 14 copies of her before activating the ability. So 14 is not too bad, it's actually considered on the lower end. In terms of the score, the minimum score is 150 with a maximum score of 934. So for minimum score it's okay, but really you should really focus on the maximum score, and the maximum score is not that great. It's relatively on the lower end. And if you would like to max out Lovely Clarice, you're going to need to get a total of 29 copies of her in the premium box, or you could also use skill tickets as well. So let's take a look at the skill chart. So at the very low end, if you have her as skill level 1, the skill range is going to be extra small. And this skill range is in reference to the vertical line that Lovely Clarice will make. So the higher your skill level, the thicker that line is going to be. So if you're able to get her to skill level 6, then your skill range is going to be extra large. So let's take a look at all three of the abilities as I talk you through some of the strategies that I use for Lovely Clarice. On the left hand side, you'll see skill level 1, which is at the very low end. So the skill range is going to be extra small. For skill level 2, the skill range is going to be small. And finally, for skill level 3, the skill range is medium. And when you're using Lovely Clarice, there's really two main things you should really focus on, and it's very simple. Before you activate the ability, make sure the screen is full of Tsums before you activate it, or you could predict either if it's going to be on the left side or the right side. And that's one tricky thing, because you can't predict if it's either going to be on the left side or the right side. The best thing to do is just make sure the screen is full of Tsums before you activate the ability. Because if not, then what you want to do is you want to spam the ability button right after you burst a bubble. So that way you know that it's going to burst the Tsums that you can't see at the very top. But because you can't predict if it's either going to be on the left side or the right side, then your best option is actually to make sure that the screen is full of Tsums before you activate the ability. And then another thing you should do is after Lovely Clarice's ability gets played through, you're either going to spawn a big Chip or a big Dale. So these are the big Tsums that's on the screen. And because they are a big Tsum, you're guaranteed a big bubble or a magic bubble after you clear the big Tsum. What I usually do is I either will save the bubble to get myself back into fever time, or I will burst it right away. And really that's your strategy, is you want to be able to activate as many Lovely Clarices as possible per game. So by clearing that big bubble is really going to help you get to the second charge up to activate the ability again. So let me show you a side-by-side comparison of the ability activated at the same time. So there's a couple of things I do want to call out here, but let me slow this down so you could actually see what's going on. So this animation is pretty standard. You have Lovely Clarice opens her eyes and then kisses Chip or Dale. So if you notice here that sometimes the clear is on the left side and sometimes it's on the right side. And this depends on who Lovely Clarice actually gives a smooch. So if it's Chip, then it might be on the left side. If it's Dale, it might be on the right side. So it really just depends on who shows up. This is a completely random sequence, so it's nothing that you could really predict. and then afterwards a big Tsum will spawn. So as you see here, at skill level 1 I got a chain of 17, skill level 2 I got a chain of 22, and skill level 3 I got a chain of 26. But this number will really vary depending on how your screen is set up. If you have gaps or holes in the center of the screen, or essentially wherever Lovely Clarice will make that vertical clear, then your chains are going to be smaller. And also if you have a big chain or big Tsum on the screen, then your numbers will also go up. So that number is going to vary, but on average you could expect more or higher chain the higher your skill level is, because that vertical line is going to be a lot thicker, clearing a lot more Tsums. Alright, so let's move on and take a look at skill level 4, 5, and 6. And again, there's only one difference here, and that is a skill range, and this is in reference to the vertical line. The skill range here is going to be large for skill level 4, extra large for skill level 5, and skill level 6 it's going to be extra large. And once you get Lovely Clarice's skill level 6, you could pretty much expect half of the screen to be cleared. So it's going to be really crucial for you to make sure that all of the Tsums are settled down before activating the ability. Sometimes you can get lucky and be able to predict the left side or the right side. And if you watch some of these game demonstrations that I have here, I didn't necessarily always do that. I kind of was testing which strategy works best, and I got lucky in most of these game demonstrations that I was able to predict which side was the best side. But it's completely random. There's really nothing you could do to anticipate either the left side or the right side. But overall, generally speaking, the best way to play Lovely Clarice is actually just make sure the center of the screen, or the entire screen has a lot of Tsums before you activate the ability. And at these higher skill level, the strategy is exactly the same as the lower skill levels. Is make sure the screen is full of Tsums, and then secondly, right after the ability is activated, try to clear off either the big chip or the big Dale, whoever spawns, immediately. And in some situations you could go right back into the ability time and then activating the second ability. So ultimately the strategy for Lovely Clarice is very simple, is you want to just activate as many abilities per game as possible, and bursting those magic bubbles can help too. If you have a magic bubble handy and you're not in fever time, you could burst those magic bubbles to try to get yourself back into fever time. And as you're watching this, you might be able to see that I didn't necessarily use this strategy that I'm commenting on right now perfectly on all 6 of these skill levels. So you could definitely get a lot more coins than I did here. All of these gameplays that you're seeing right now were my initial plays going through at that skill level. So these were my first attempts at every single one of these levels. So you could definitely get a lot more score and a lot more coins than I did here with a little bit more practice. So let's take a look at the ability side by side. I'll first play it in full speed and then we can slow it down. But very similar to the lower skill level, you'll see Lovely Clarice jump out and kiss either Chip and Dale. So keep an eye out on the animation and you'll be able to spot a different Chip or Dale. So it's pretty cool. And then of course you have your vertical cleared, and look at the range here. It's significantly thicker compared to skill level 1, 2, and 3. And you'll see here that I got lucky. I didn't have the screen full before activating my skill. You'll see that I have some gaps on the right side for skill level 4, and skill level 5 and 6 I had gaps on the left side. So I just got lucky here, but ultimately you want to make sure the screen is full of Tsum so you don't have to anticipate which side to go. But this is just a demonstration on how thick the vertical line is going to be. So at skill level 4 I got a chain of 29, 31 for skill level 5, and finally for skill level 6 I got a chain of 34. And you'll see here that the colors are going to be different depending on if Big Chip or Big Dale comes out, but ultimately the same strategy is that after you activate the ability, once these big Tsums are spawned, you'll want to try to clear or make a big chain using either the Big Chip or the Big Dale. Once you do that, you might be able to go right back into fever time or ability time. And you'll see an example of that for skill level 6. So you saw right there, I just went right back into ability time and I was able to activate another ability. In this case, I spammed the ability button, so I went back to back on the left side. So overall, I would say Lovely Clarice is not one of those Tsums that you must jump out and get right away. I definitely wouldn't recommend you to use your skill tickets on Lovely Clarice either. It's not one of those Tsums that's going to yield you a good amount of coins or a good amount of score. I think that Lovely Clarice is going to be really good for missions, especially if you don't have a Tsum that makes big Tsums, then Lovely Clarice is going to be really good for that. Lovely Clarice can also be used for bubble making as well, but it's not going to be a very good bubble maker. But if you don't have a good bubble maker and you also don't have a big Tsum maker, then Lovely Clarice can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and you can use the Tsum to do both. So if you struggle with missions that require you to make big Tsums or get a lot of bubbles, then getting Lovely Clarice is not a bad idea. Just keep in mind that it's not going to be the best Tsum for both making big Tsums or also making bubbles. Not amazing for coins either. But regardless, let's take a look at the results. At skill level 1, I ended up with 4 million points, so not that much compared to skill level 6, 10 million. Also not that amazing, so from a scoring perspective, I probably wouldn't recommend using Lovely Clarice for score. And as for coins, very similar story. For skill level 1, I got 1,340 coins, and it's not until skill level 4 where I got 3,130 coins, which means that you would likely need to get Lovely Clarice to skill level 4 before you want to use the 5-4 and the coin boost. And looking at the results for skill level 5 and 6, it's really not worth it to get Lovely Clarice to skill level 5 or 6, just because how much investment you need to make to get them there. So if you are planning on investing in Lovely Clarice, I think that if you could get her to skill level 4 or maybe even skill level 3 if you don't have too many coins saved up, those 2 are the skill levels you want to target. Anything more is really just for collecting purposes and if you want to max out your account, but in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, getting Lovely Clarice to skill level 4 is already pretty good. So that's my review for Lovely Clarice, and if you guys would like to see more Tsum Tsum content just like this, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, thank you so much for watching.